Have you ever wanted to put a battery backup system in your home, but you don't want to spend 50 grand to do it?
Well, my boys have come up with a great solution. You want to see this. Hey, Provenor Preppers, I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Robert, and we're here to tell you today about our battery backup system. Let me tell you a little story. We have security latches on all of our exterior doors for added security at our home. Those security latches can only be opened from the inside though. So a lot of times what will happen is we'll leave out the garage and leave the garage door latched with just the regular deadbolt. Well, if our power ever goes down while we're away, our garage doors won't open anymore and we can't get into any of our other doors and we're locked out of our own house. We didn't like that, and so we wanted to come up with a solution that didn't break the bank and still allowed us to get into our garage doors and run every single light in our house if the grid ever goes down. That's what we're going to be showing you today.
And beyond that, you're also creating an emergency backup for you, as well as fully utilizing your solar panels. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. We do have solar panels on our home, and one of the things that we want to do as much as we can is use power that we generate from our solar panels instead of power from the grid. The solution that we've had is this transfer switch. Now, these transfer switches are commonly used in situations where you want to hook up a generator to your house, but we have kind of changed the approach just a little bit, and we think it's a really smart idea. This was actually thought of by my brother Mike, who you'll see here in just a minute again, and he thought, well, hey, why don't we utilize solar power to charge up some batteries and then use that solar power throughout the night, deplete the batteries throughout the night, and then the sun comes up again the next day and charges them up. Most people will keep these battery generators as just backup only, and they'll try to remember to cycle them a couple of times a year, but the solution that we have runs them full time. 100% of the time they're running something. Let me show you this transfer switch here. This transfer switch allows us to pick any 12 of these circuits in our main panel and back them up so that they're run by these batteries here. Dad, tell us a little bit about this setup here. What do you like about it? What is cool to you that might be interesting to the viewers here?
I really like the fact that this is all labeled so that you can run off your generator on this side and off of line power, which is grid power, if it's in that position. And it's just kind of ingenious to me. So describe a little more to our audience about this system and why it works the way it does.
So one of the things that we had to first do when we were looking at this system is decide, what do we want to have power if the grid goes down? And I'll start naming off a few things. Your refrigerator, your freezers, your furnace, especially in the winter when it gets super cold, you probably still want to be able to have a furnace that works. Lights, ceiling fans, especially for the summer when it's really hot. What you may not want to put on this would be your 220 volt stuff, your stove, your air conditioner. I think we have one more, our dryer. And so if you were to put those circuits onto these batteries, this is 9 kilowatt hours right here, but it would blow through 9 kilowatt hours in probably about an hour and a half or 2 hours. I didn't want to put any of that on here, so I just stuck with lights and plugs basically, just whatever plugs we wanted to be able to still use. So I have all of our critical stuff backed up. Every single light in our house will work, even if the grid goes down, because of this battery backup system. That was the first thing that I did, is I looked at my panel here and I said, which of these circuits would I still want to be able to use if the grid went down? And then I just picked those. In this case, I can have 12. Different transfer switches may have 6 or 8 or 10. I picked one that had 12 so that I could back up as much as I possibly could. And I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. Again, I can run every single light, every single ceiling fan. About half of the plugs in our house I can use. Our garage door openers, which we've had problems with before, all those will run. There are some things that won't run, and that's okay. I picked the stuff that was most important to us. And when you do this, you can pick what is most important to you to back up. Now, you want to make sure that you have a qualified electrician install this, because it does go into your main panel. So make sure that you have a qualified electrician do this work. It is risky to do electrical work if you don't know what you're doing. So consult a qualified electrician. But the other thing that we did in here that we really like is we actually installed this using smart outlets. So what happens is, coming out of this battery system, we've got a 30 amp cord that plugs into the side of our transfer switch here. This is what feeds power into here. And just by flipping these switches, we can decide, do we want this to operate, each circuit, do we want it to operate on the grid power or the generator power, just by flipping a switch. So if one of my daughters is taking too long in the shower, which happens, I could come in here and I could just turn the light off. And then they'd be like, Dad! And we'd be like, yeah. Anyway, so that's really cool, but what we have here is a smart outlet. I installed a smart outlet down here to charge these batteries. And the way that I programmed this is I said, at sunrise, I want you to turn this on and start charging the battery. And at sunset, I want you to turn off the charging. We're just gonna deplete our battery over the night. And I've calculated that it saves me about 5 kilowatt hours per night that I would normally be drawing from the grid, but we're actually just depleting our batteries with. And so by using a smart outlet to charge it during the day when we've got solar energy coming in, we're saving money too. We're saving 5 kilowatt hours a day times 30 days in a month. I have to take my shoes off, but I think it's about 150 kilowatt hours a month that we are saving by utilizing generated power from our solar to run our house during the night.
Now, the real beauty to me is that if the grid went away, you're still going to be able to operate this system, and tell us how.
Well, we've got this big 20 amp cord here. This is a heavy duty 10 gauge 20 amp cord. It's 100 feet long. On our solar inverter, we have a plug that allows us to still use power from our solar by disconnecting from the grid and then turning on one plug, one 20 amp plug on our inverter. We could run this cord out to our inverter and be pulling in 20 amps to charge this. That's all we need. We don't need more than 20 amps. In fact, I'm charging it right now on 15 amps and it's plenty. So we've got this 20 amp cord that we could plug right into our solar inverter if the grid ever goes down and have continuous power, non-stop throughout the year. Now in the winter, when there's not as much sun, we may have to be a little bit more conservative about which appliances we use and which circuits we use and so on, but we could make it. We could make it all day, every day, non-stop with this setup that we have here because we can plug that directly into our solar inverter. Now, Dad, there are some ways that you could even, and I'll grab this cord over here, there are some ways that if you don't have a plug on a solar inverter, you could charge these with portable solar panels, and you've got some experience with that. Tell us about this plug here. Tell us how you could do that if you wanted to go that route.
Yeah, this is just a standard cord that fits on a standard solar panel. These are the MC4 connectors, and then this connects into here. So you would need some kind of an extension cord, but you could plug in your solar outside, bring that in here, just similar to what you would use this cord for. Bring that in, charge. So you could be running off your own solar panels and charging using just an MC4 connector.
And I've actually thought about doing that because right now the solar panels that we have are connected to the main power system in our house and to the grid and everything. So if the grid goes down, again, we have that one plug. But I've thought about putting some more solar panels up on my roof, and instead of connecting them to the rest of the solar panels, connect them directly to this. I can charge this with DC power from those solar panels, and you can pull in something like, I don't know how many watts it is on this particular system, but like 5,000 watts or something is what you could charge with. And so if you put some more panels out or on your roof that just feed directly to this, you would have continuous charging from solar directly into here with a higher wattage than you can charge AC with AC. So kind of a cool setup that you could run. Not in theory, but in reality, we could run this all day, every day, for the whole year, and have power.
Isn't that really ingenious? I was just impressed when they were telling me, because I'm usually the solar guy, but I hadn't thought about this angle, but they did. So any last words you want to tell us about your system here?
The biggest thing that, you'll see in here, there's a couple of circuits that I haven't turned onto this, onto the battery power. It's the microwave and the furnace. Those draw a lot of power. Now in an emergency, I would absolutely flip that furnace on, but for now, I've kept that off. But I love the flexibility that you have with this, and you don't have to have an electrician every time you want to switch something to be back on the grid or back on, your battery power. You just flip one of these switches, and I'll show you here. This is the furnace switch. Now it's running on battery power. That's all. That's as easy as it is to switch it from battery power to grid power. I love that we are now no longer dependent on the grid if the grid goes down. I love that we can run every critical thing that we need to in our home, nonstop, continuously, every day, every week, every year, without ever going down. And again, that includes our lights, our refrigerator, our ceiling fans, our furnace, microwave to warm up the chicken nuggets, plugs to do various things. I love that I'm not dependent on the grid for all of this power. Now let's take you over to my brother's house and we'll show you what he has done in his house. Very similar to this, but he'll talk through some of the things that he's done a little bit differently and how he likes his.
So now we're over in my house and I wanted to show you my setup. I've actually got 2 battery systems and 2 separate transfer switches. Part of the fun of this is just choosing what you want to have powered when the grid goes down. My system is a little bit different than my twins. My transfer switches don't have those fancy lights that my twin has, but they do the exact same thing. What I decided to do is put all 6 of my 20 amp circuits that I wanted powered on this transfer switch and all 10 of my 15 amp switches on this one. And I am running this off one battery bank and then these circuits off another battery bank. So between these two, I have 13 kilowatt hours of storage. And like my brother said, we run pretty much the entire house off of these all night long and we don't ever draw from the grid. In fact, I've looked at my power bill and during the night, my energy usage is almost always at 0 unless the AC comes on because the AC isn't run off these. You could run a 220 circuit on these like my brother said, but it would drain your batteries really fast. So simple as just flipping switches. I think my brother already showed you that. So a couple other points that we wanted to go over is number 1, the cost of the system. Number 2, what I would do in a grid down situation with this particular setup. So the cost of these systems, it varies. It depends on what you get and if you get them on sale. I got my battery systems when they were on sale for the Amazon Prime days. And so this 9 kilowatt hours ended up costing about $4,000 and the transfer switch to go with it ended up costing about $400, so about $4,400 to get that setup right there. And then on my smaller setup right here, this transfer switch I think was like $350 and the battery banks were about $2,000. So between both of these and the 13 kilowatt hours, I can run almost the entire house. The only things that I can't run on this and that I haven't chosen to run on this is the air conditioner, the ovens, my stove top, and the dryer. Those are the only things that we would be without, but our internet would work, our TVs would work, our lights, our plugs, our kitchen, everything, the bathroom fans, it all runs on one of these 2 transfer switches. And we're finishing the basement right now, and I specifically designed the electrical in here so that I could run pretty much everything on this one transfer switch. So that was kind of nice for me to be able to have that flexibility since my walls weren't up yet. But consult an electrician to help you get this up and running in your own home. Now, if the grid were to go down, like my brother, I don't have the furnace running right now on my batteries. I had it running one night and it pulls about 500 watts just to move the air in the furnace. So right now I don't have that running on my battery system, but if the grid goes down, I just flip the switch and boom, we're running the furnace again. What do you think, Dad? What would you run?
I think you've covered it really well. I think there are certain things you would just have to do without. And you've talked about those, the 220 especially. Your oven, things like that just draw so much energy that we need to find alternative ways to do that. There's alternative ways to cook for lighting, although you would have lighting throughout your house because that's a very light load.
Yeah.
It doesn't take very much. 10-watt bulbs in all your fixtures, so it's, that's not a big load. But I think you've done a great job of isolating and figuring out which ones you would want to run. And but I want to hear a little bit more about, if there was grid down, how are you going to be able to power some of this? You do have the solar on the roof, but not the plug that Robert has. What's your plan?
Well, I was really sad that I couldn't do the plug that my twin brother has. They actually outlawed that particular inverter in Utah. So you're right, I don't have the ability to use my solar panels when the grid goes down. Except that I can still use my solar panels. I just have to unhook them from the inverter. Now, consult a qualified electrician. But what I can do is I can climb up on my roof and I can just unhook the solar panels and I can run an MC4 cable into my storage room here and put in a whole bunch of watts into these battery systems. If there was an extended power outage, that's what I do. But in the future, I'm going to be I plan on putting up 8 solar panels on my roof that are just dedicated to feeding these 2 things right here. And then I never draw from the grid for anything at all almost. I also have these set up on smart outlets so that they only charge when I'm pulling in solar. but that's the next step for me. I want some dedicated solar panels just to charge up my battery system, make it a little more efficient too. Part of the beauty of this too, I actually looked at getting an installed battery, a battery that's stuck to the house and screwed onto the house, and it would be a pretty cool setup. Then I could use solar. The problem I had with it is that you can buy these batteries for about half the price per kilowatt hour. It costs way less. And the other good side about this is if I ever leave this house for some reason, these are coming with me, where in the other system, they're not. They're staying with the house, and I just bought a whole bunch of money of batteries that I don't get to take with me.
Yeah.
And another advantage is when we go camping in about a month, right?
Yeah.
I'm taking this with me. I'm going to take this and we're going to run a fridge off of it and a whole bunch of other stuff so that we don't have to go without those things.
Is that what they call glamping?
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna have power to do all the fun stuff
Yeah.
while we're enjoying the great outdoors and the fresh air.
We'll just flip all these switches to the grid while we leave and take this with us, and then we get back, we just flip the switches back on and then we're running off batteries again. So pretty cool system overall. I'm really pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah, I love it. I really do.
Yeah. So the question of the day is, how are you going to power your house when the grid goes down? Thanks for being part of the solution.